So in this part of the video, we're going to now add the code that we initially wrote in pseudocode and convert it to the different languages. I'm simply going to comment this out for the moment, and we're going to start with the first part of the code, which was how do we get a random hex digit. So if we remember, we have a function and we call that get random hex digits, and just like in C#, we use the curly braces. Then what did we do? We created the lookup. Well, it's a constant, we don't need to change anything, so const lookup equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. And that looks exactly the same as most of the other code. Then what we need to do is we need to generate a random number. So it's slightly different in JavaScript than it is in either C#, Visual Basic, or Python, or pseudocode. The reason for that is that the function, and we're going to call it for the moment rand, is equal to, we have something called math.random, and that does not take in any parameters. It simply, as it says here, returns a pseudo random number between 0 and 1. That's a little bit misleading because it's not between 0 and 1. It includes 0, but it does not include 1. Effectively, it goes up to 0.999 recurring. So if we wanted the number 1, we would never ever get the number 1. And so we have to use our logic skills to work out how we can do this. So if we were to multiply this by 15, then the maximum number we would get is 14.99999, and the lowest number we would get is 0. Well, we want 0, but we want to get to 15. So we could round everything up, and that would give us at 14.99 would give us 15, but everything from 0 upwards would round up to 1. So that won't work. However, if we change that to times 16 and round everything down, and so what we can do then is we can then do something called math.floor. We're going to put all of that into brackets. So math.floor rounds everything down. So we have math.round, which will round it to the nearest whole number. So 12.1 will be rounded down to 12, and 12.7 will be rounded to 13. We have math.ceil for ceiling, which rounds everything up, and then we have math.floor. And so this code will give me a number between 0 and 15.999. If we round that 15.999 down, it will give us 15, and anything from below will be rounded down to 0. So that will give us our random number, and so we can then, after that little hiccup, can go back and say const hex digit, oops, is equal to, and it's exactly the same code as before, where we have lookup at the index of whatever random is, and we can then simply return hex digit. Now, a number of people might be screaming at the screen saying, well, we could just simply return hex digit and not have that line there. In fact, we don't even need to return hex digit equals, we can just say return that value. And yes, you could, but particularly when I'm wanting to debug, particularly when I'm struggling with some code, I think it's important that you put that line in here so that we could put a breakpoint on here and look at hex digit so we can see if there's anything going wrong. So that's why I prefer to do that. Of course, you'll see here that's the case. So what did we need to do next? Well, we then said we had a function called get hex color, and that didn't take in anything. And what did we do here? Well, we said first of all that we want to create something called a color string, and we initialize that to be a hash. And we then said we need to loop 6 times, and this code is identical almost to the C#. We can say for let C is equal to 0, C is less than 6, and increment C. Don't forget our curly braces. And what did we do? We said digit is equal to the get random hex digit, and then we said that color string is equal to color string plus digits, and then we can simply return color string, and that should get us a hex color. And so now what we can do is we can actually call, we can say const hex color is equal to the get hex color, and this time we can say that the color name is equal to color name is equal to that hex color. So now when we run this, we should get a random number, a random color at the start. And of course we're not, and that's because we're telling here that there's a new color name, but we also of course need to get the square and set that to be background color. Now we did that in here in our event listener, so we're going to also put that, and this time it's the hex color, and this time you'll see that what we get is the color and the color. Now of course what we want to do now, instead of creating a fixed blue, what we can do is we can get our hex color when we select or click on the button. So now hopefully if we change this, we can now see that the color changes and that the color is displayed down below. And that is the end of that. We've seen over the last few videos how to create this markup, how to act on a button click and just change it to a fixed color and show the color string below. And then in this last video we converted the original hex color or random hex color from pseudocode to JavaScript and hooked that up to the click function. And hopefully that should help you with your A-level OCR.